Jared on the phone. Yes, Jared, where are you calling from?
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yes. I guess this is our third encounter, Kent. I pretty much wanted to talk about biblical inerrancy or errancy. If that was possible today.
Sure.
Okay. Now, if I could prove to you that Jesus said one prophecy that turned out not to be true, do you consider that enough of a criterion to declare him a false prophet?
Yes, I think the word prove is a pretty strong hurdle to overcome, but go ahead.
Well, it seems like it's pretty much a mathematical thing when it comes to prophecy, because what they say is going to come true comes true every time, or there's one exception at least, right?
Okay.
Okay. So, like we were looking at before, Matthew 24:34 is at the end of a sort of a soliloquy of Jesus. And I actually have a printout right now of the King James Version and the NIV of this section of Matthew. And I wanted to call your attention to the apocalyptic language that uses from Matthew 24:1 to Matthew 21:33, 34, and a little bit beyond that. And I wanted to see how you would respond to...
Okay, I'm getting there. Matthew 24, did you say, or 20?
Matthew 24, verses 1 through 34 are the...
Okay, yeah, that's quite a chapter. Go ahead.
Of course, not all prophecies have been fulfilled yet, but go ahead there.
Right, and that's the problem, is that he terminates this prophecy with a declaration that the generation that he was speaking to would still be alive, or it would not pass away before all of those things happen. But if you look at some of the things that he's ever going to happen, talking about, for instance, he says, immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. Stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. At that time, the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and all the nations of the earth will mourn. They will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of the sky with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. Now, that is almost identical language and style to the events of the book of Revelation. And I think that any intellectually honest biblical scholar would tell you that what Jesus was referring to here was, in fact, signs of the end of the age, and that he expected those events to happen within the lifetime of the people who would. These events have not happened, and those people have become worm food several millennia ago, and I don't understand how you can defend this position, since you told me a few days ago that the word generation, King James Bible in it, does mean what it says. That we're interpreting the Bible literally in this case.
Are you just saying he was talking about the generation he's talking to at that moment, or the generation that saw these things happen? The generation that sees these signs come to pass is the one that's not going to pass away. Could that be yet future?
Do you think that is in agreement with what you told me 3 days ago?
I've taken 3,000 phone calls since 3 days ago. I totally forgot about our conversation. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. I fixed my memory out more than a dozen years, I guess. You agreed with me that these events have already happened.
The events of Matthew 24? No, I do not agree they've already happened.
You said that before, Ken. I was very careful about this.
Okay, some of these events have happened, but most have not. I think a lot of this is still yet future. I think the Great Tribulation is still coming.
What you said before was that these things had been fulfilled because of the burning or the destruction of the temple in 70 A.D.?
No, that's true. There's been quite a few tribulation. I did talk about the 70 A.D. destruction of the temple. So sometimes prophecies have a multiple fulfillment. There's an immediate fulfillment and a secondary fulfillment. There's dozens of examples of that in Scripture. But I think he's talking about that generation. Jesus' generation did see horrible tribulation when they sacked Rome and burned the city and destroyed the temple and Jerusalem. Yeah, he said specifically.
He says all of these things. He says this generation will certainly not pass away until all of these things have happened.
Okay, now when he says all these things, are you saying he's referring to the entire chapter, or could he be referring to?
Absolutely, that's the obvious conclusion from the context.
That's where your assumption is wrong. Okay.
No, it's not an assumption, Ken. This is just what I mean. You and people like answers in Genesis and biblical scholars, I guess, say that think that every word is literally true within its context. Will agree that this context is the end of the world.
Okay, there's your problem. Matthew 24 has multiple levels of prophecy.
How can you declare that?
Well, there are quite a few verses, like Jesus when he went into the temple and he said, he read part of Isaiah chapter, it was 61, I believe, and said, this day this prophecy has been... He stopped in the middle of the verse. It's like looking at a mountain range. You see a mountain peak, and then you see another mountain peak. Looks like it's right behind it, but there's actually a huge valley in between. As a prophet is writing, sometimes he sees two events, and there's a giant valley between the two that isn't visible till you get to the top of the first mountain. So that's just a common practice in prophecy, is to have multiple fulfillments, multiple meanings. And I think you have a reason for picking at this so... with the nitpicking, I would say. Your reason for nitpicking is you're looking for a way to eliminate the authority of God